Welcome to the Westminster Effects Doxology Podcast. We exist for the glory of God and the tone of His people. I'm Cody Fields, president of Westminster Effects. Go buy stuff for your guitar, westminstereffects.com. Make sure you subscribe and join all of our various social media accounts, and welcome to video if you're on YouTube or Spotify. I'm joined in person by...
Hey everybody, it's Bradley Cox, pastor at Resurrection Church in Greer, South Carolina.
Man, we're looking awesome right now. I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah?
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
It's our shirt. That's great.
And you even have on a new shirt for the church that, came in today?
Came in today.
And it's actually black, so now I want one.
Yeah.
And
you'll get one.
So, yeah, if you're only listening, we're now doing video. If you are already subscribed to the YouTube channel, then this is a shock to you because you don't see just a waveform. So, welcome, I guess. So, really, really upbeat primary topic today.
Which I don't even know at this point. I don't even know what the topic is. Normally you tell me.
I did Sunday.
You did?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Mike Bickle.
Oh, Mike Bickle.
And,
that's right. Okay.
And the title of this, I'm stealing this from Greg Moore of the Dead Men Walking podcast. Shout out to Greg. This is Mike Bickle's International House of Predators.
Oh, man.
So
too soon.
Yeah, too soon, or not soon enough. It seems.
That's probably true.
So if you're not in the know, there have been multiple apparently credible allegations against Mike Bickle of not just sexual misconduct but sexual abuse, abusing his position. I'm sure you've seen some of this going around, right?
I've read one article.
Yeah. So I actually read the original statement that some former IHOP leaders put out. Basically, serious allegations spanning several decades that are credible and long-standing. They went to him individually, to Mike Bickle, and in the spirit, they say, of Matthew 18, and they were repeatedly rebuffed. And instead, Bickle used manipulating and intimidation tactics toward the victims to try to isolate and discredit them. So when that didn't work, they took it to basically the governorship of IHOP, and here we are. So what do we do with this when this happens again? Like this is a recurring theme in the American church the last, 15, 20 years of... And this is the broadest sense of broad evangelicalism to include IHOP in this. We can get to that in a minute. But whether it's the SBC allegations and really confirmations, the SBC, you've got the stuff that goes on in the Roman Catholic Church, which is a different animal altogether. And now we have IHOP. What do we do here?
I mean, I don't know that it's one thing. I mean, I think there are problems with IHOP.
Yes.
And that could be part of the problem.
I think it absolutely is.
I mean, not that, an organization is responsible for Bickle's behavior. Bickle is responsible for his own behavior, but the fact that the organization, it went on this long.
Right.
And nobody knew.
Right.
And nobody said anything. I mean, I find that hard to believe, but I think there's a number of different things that can contribute to this kind of thing being perpetuated. Has someone been promoted into leadership too quickly? Is there a plurality of leaders that are not just yes men, but actually sharing the weight of responsibility in not just local churches, but I think also in organizations like IHOP and other, if you want to call that a parachurch, I guess you would, wouldn't you?
I think they're a full-blown church.
Are they a full-blown church?
I think so. One of their big things is the 24/7 prayer and worship thing, which don't get us started on that. Like, it just abuses Scripture all the way around to even say that should be a thing, and particularly with their word of faith bullcrap informing that, right? Like, they're saying that they're allowing God to work in the world and paving the way for Jesus to come again by doing that. So that aside, I think they do have a plurality of leadership. There's 3 men on here, former executive leadership team and board member, former executive leadership team and board member, and former pastor of Forerunner Christian Fellowship, and former vice president of student affairs from IHOP University.
Mm-hmm.
So there does seem to be some amount of accountability, but at the same time, them being associated with, even though they deny it, associated with the New Apostolic Reformation, and Bickle propping himself up as an apostle and associating with so-called prophets like the late Bob Jones, not the fundamentalist Baptist Bob Jones near us, but the one that was based in Kansas City with him. That, I think, necessarily sets the stage for this kind of thing to happen.
I think you're right. I mean, I don't know if it was Inquisition or Main Topic, but the question was posed a couple of episodes ago about should a layperson question a pastor's teaching?
Right.
And my response to that is absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think that anytime the culture of a church or another Christian organization becomes about one person, even if there is a plurality of leaders around that person, when all the focus is there, there's just way too much potential for this kind of behavior to be incubated and perpetuated. Plus, I think the collateral damage from it is a lot worse.
Yes.
You know, when you have a church full of people who have been discipled to keep their focus on Christ, on the Lord himself, and on his word, not just a big personality that tends to be on stage all the time.
Yep.
Then if that person falls, right, which, you know, if we just put the best possible spin on it, a Christian, a born-again, filled with the Spirit Christian, can at times act out of character.
Right, of course. And sometimes act out of character for months or years at a time.
Prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Like there is still this fleshly part of us and its appetites that, you know, Christians give into. We still sin. We are born again. We are becoming like Christ. We will be fully conformed to his image, but we still sin. So if a genuinely good leader, like in the best possible, you know, situation, the doctrine's right, the culture of worship is right, the focus is right, and he falls,
right,
then I think there's still going to be pain. There's still going to be, you know, some collateral damage that occurs, but I think it's minimized when the focus has been on the Word and on God himself, on Christ, more so than on a personality.
Yeah.
But when you've got this new apostolic stuff, when these guys fall, like,
it leaves a crater.
It leaves a crater.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Jimmy Swaggart. Same thing happened with Jim Baker.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like these guys fell and it was all about them. I mean, people packing out stadiums to see these guys.
Which, side note, this lines up really well with Mark Driscoll now associating with these guys because it was all about him and then he fell. He ran from that, started his own church, and now, oh, look, he's doing events with those same kind of guys.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Who's he doing events with?
The one that comes to mind, it's like the Domino Revival or some nonsense like that. The one that I remember and that I immediately recognized was Ryan Lestrange, claims to be an apostle. He's been on Pirate Christian Radio I don't know how many times, and the guy's just a nut. And so he's actually apologized for calling out Joel Osteen and stuff like that. He called Calvinism garbage. So he figured out, I guess, where he could go pay his bills again, I guess. Like even his first public appearance after he ran from Mars Hill was at, I think, a Hillsong conference being introduced by who's the guy in Dallas? Is it Robert Morris?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was introduced by him. So it's like he just jumped in with them, I guess, because all their egos, it just lines up that way.
I think Mark Driscoll's been friends with Robert Morris for a long time.
And that could be the case.
Yeah, because I remember that going back a long way.
Which still doesn't line up with, one, borderline Reformed theology, or orthodoxy in general.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the sad thing is that when you reach a certain level, like it's, I'm not justifying anything, but I can imagine it being incredibly hard.
Yes.
To not be tempted to do whatever it took to get back to that level.
Right. And we even saw that with Perry Noble here locally.
Totally.
Like, yeah, I get it. And it's what you're good at least on stage.
Yeah.
Right? Gifted communicator kind of thing. And then, well, I want to keep doing that. So I'm going to make it happen. Yeah. So, but back to his associations within the NAR. So this was from Christianity Today. And I thought their article was really well done, but they talk about one, IHOP started as a vineyard church in the 80s. I didn't realize that. And then they left the vineyard. They got too out there for the vineyard denomination and left in the mid-90s, which is saying something because the vineyard is, as far as I'm aware, they're Orthodox, but they're really dang charismatic.
No, they are.
So
I've been in some good vineyard churches, but they are very charismatic.
Right. So left the vineyard, and since then he's been buddies with Paul Cain, who was disciplined over one, alcoholism and homosexual behavior, and then Bob Jones, who admitted sexual misconduct and spiritual abuse. One of those was forcing women to strip down while he prophesied over them so they could stand naked before the Lord. Do you remember his Kansas City Chiefs prophecy from several years ago?
I do not.
This was like 18 or 19. And so the Chiefs were getting good. That was like right at the beginning of Patrick Mahomes' career. And he prophesied that the next time the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl, that would be God's sign to the world that he's setting up his chief apostles. And then Jesus was about to come back. Well, when was the next time the Chiefs won the Super Bowl? Was in February of 2020.
Wow.
Let's let that sink in, right?
Yeah.
What happened in 2020?
Yeah.
Like a month later,
right.
It was not God setting up his apostles.
No.
It was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So Bob Jones, false prophet. Paul Cain, false prophet. Mike Bickle hangs out with these guys. What do you think's going to happen? This is like a bad company corrupts good character kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that what people like, my concern and my passion is for just the average ordinary Christian sitting in the pew, sitting in the chair every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, might be tempted, might be enamored with, these guys that are so charismatic and they're so talented, they're so gifted, they have such huge followings. And I'm telling you, we just need the steady, basic life of the local church.
Mm-hmm.
And anything like that, typically speaking, is going to have an overemphasis on one particular thing.
Right.
There's going to be something out of balance that should be readily identifiable.
Right. And this isn't saying that our church is perfect and doesn't have our
not
own
at all
imbalances at all.
No.
This is saying this particular thing has this particular flaw.
Yeah. But it gets so blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
And there's so much hype that gets associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it typically gets packaged as there's a secret, there's a key, there's a new revelation,
Yep.
there's a something that
Big
we
emphasis
have
on fresh revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something we have or this person has that nobody else does.
Yeah.
And that, if you just zoom out and look at it, seems to me to be a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
And people get so attracted to that,
Mm-hmm.
that these guys get huge. They get these huge platforms.
Yep.
And I had a guy, a wise man that used to speak into my life years ago. He said, Bradley, the further the monkey goes up the tree, the more you see his butt. And I was like, that's just right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm pretty content with a not so tall tree
with that too.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. But I find myself a lot lately. I had somebody stop by the church. I'm getting off topic a little bit, but I had somebody stop by the church yesterday.
No, I think this is still on the topic because of the overall theme.
Somebody stopped by the church yesterday. Interestingly, about 2-3 months ago or so, I got rear-ended. Actually, somebody behind me ran into a lady who was directly behind me.
Yep.
And knocked her into me.
Yep, I've had that happen to me too.
All right. And so we all pull off the side of the road, and the lady who got knocked into me, her husband showed up. And I ended up having a conversation with him. He found out I was a pastor. He's a Christian. They go to a church somewhere else in town.
He found out, he had just cussed, found out you were a pastor, and said, sorry about that.
Yeah. But he's a nice guy. He showed up at church at the office yesterday.
Oh.
And wanted to ask me what Christians, apparently he had talked to his pastor and got a less than satisfactory answer. But what should churches be doing right now to support Israel?
Oh boy, yeah.
And it just like I think,
which Israel are we talking about?
well, I had that conversation with him, right? And he was like, I don't want to say blown away by that, but he was like, oh. Like starting to realize as we looked at scriptures and I pointed him to certain places in scripture and started to, ended with him saying, I said this to him at the end, look, the best thing the church can do to support Israel is preach Christ.
Yep.
Preach Christ everywhere.
Yep.
Proclaim, make his name known. And when you get away from that and you get focused on fresh revelation, some secret, some key, or some emphasis on if we do this in relation to Israel, it's going to usher in the second coming. Anytime you get focused on these outlying kind of things, I think it just creates a culture and it creates an atmosphere of hype and one that could incubate this sort of sinful behavior.
Yeah. So let's get your thoughts on this. So this is also from the Christianity Today article. Well, they're actually citing the Kansas City Star. So last Sunday, so 2 Sundays ago, Bickle preached on false allegations. Oh boy. So in the sermon, he discussed how per Revelation 12:10, so here we go with...
You're already rolling your eyes.
Yeah. Satan's most effective weapon in the end times is accusation, and he turns whispered influences into hostile accusations that destroy lives and relationships. Bickle also said that the church is approaching the most glorious and challenging hour in her history with the dragon, breathing on many to accuse and betray her. Because, of course, he's actually being consistent in all that.
No, yeah.
But
it's clearly self-preservation.
Yes.
He's putting things in people's minds so that when they hear the allegations, they're going to automatically dismiss it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Satan's using this, right?
Yeah.
It actually reminds me, everybody knows I'm a nerd. That goes back a long way. Yeah. So in college, I tested out of introductory history. I took the AP US history exam and nailed it. Just because I like history. So as a sophomore, I took a senior level history course called 19th Century Religion and Reform. And it was about Christians in the 1800s trying to institute social and political reforms. So whether it was improved conditions in the prison systems, the abolitionist movement with slavery, the temperance movement, teetotalism, and all that kind of stuff. And the way Dr. Paul Thompson broke it down was there are basically 2 motivations, and you can actually break this down into motivations politically now, is you have social control as a motivating factor of I want to control how people live for good or bad, because even having laws against murder is a form of social control, right? There's also status anxiety. And these two can intertwine, but status anxiety is, I don't like the prospects for my current status in society going forward unless I do something. So I'm going to enact this law or this policy or preach this message that hopefully shores up my position in this organization. And so I think this is getting into a little bit of both.
Sure.
Of it's social control and the fact that he wants his church to still I can't edit this out on video as easily, to still support him in these allegations, but he's also trying to prop himself up in his position.
Yeah,
and preserve himself, which one is super selfish.
That's what I was going to say.
And 2, it's so destructive to all of his church.
It clearly indicates that his focus is not on the care of his people; it's on the preservation of himself.
Right.
And that's just sad. Like it's just incredibly sad to me.
Yeah, I actually watched the live streamed thing. I didn't watch it while it was being live streamed, but they actually put it out there during their 11 o'clock or 11:30 service on Sunday. Like, we're going to address it during this time. We're going to pray about it, whatever. And the men who made the announcement like choked up a couple times. Like, they really care, one, about their people, as many issues as we have with them, right? They really care about their people, and they care about Mike Bickle.
Yeah.
Which they were adamant, we're not trying to just throw him under a bus. We're not going to try and throw anybody under the bus. We want reconciliation and restoration, which gives me hope that maybe in the future they can have a little bit of reformation go on.
Man, I pray that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, then, good for them.
Right.
And by God's grace, I pray that they would not only care for their people, handle this in a healthy way, but that the Lord would bring correction to their doctrinal errors.
Right.
I mean, through this. I mean, that's possible. And I think as Christians, we should be prayerful and hopeful in that way.
Yes.
Because the other side of this whole thing, with so much of it having gone on, is that we're inclined to just start throwing stones. We want to distance ourselves from this rather than be prayerful and hope, because there are a lot of people associated with IHOP that I'm sure many of them are truly believers.
Yes.
And so we should pray for them.
And it's one of the interesting things with this is I was irritated several months ago. Sam Storms, charismatic Calvinist, right? And amillennial for that matter.
Yes.
And I believe Charlie Fox of Pinstripe Pedals goes to his church, if I remember correctly. Shout out to Charlie. I don't think he listens, but shout out to Charlie. He makes good DI boxes. But Sam Storms, good guy, Orthodox, and basically had his going away, his retirement service, and had as his guests, 1, John Piper, but 2, Mike Bickle. And I was really irritated at that fact. But maybe that friendship with someone who is Orthodox, and maybe the fact that Mike Bickle definitely met John Piper, maybe that's an in for Piper to get a hold of him.
And this,
or Sam Storms, or,
this could absolutely be God's kindness to him.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You talk about providence, and you've talked about Piper's line of, if God's doing one thing, he's doing a trillion things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
It could be that God set up Mike Bickle to preach all these heresies to recant them later.
It could be.
How awesome would that be?
And when you look at Bickle's effort to preserve himself with a particular sermon ahead of allegations coming out against him,
yep.
How interesting is it that perhaps, I don't know how much he knows about, or how much interaction he's had with Sam Storms or John Piper ahead of being a part of that service.
Right.
But how interesting. I don't know how long ago that happened, but it almost seems like as he's trying to preserve himself, God is also setting up preservation for him.
Right.
With men like that could come around him and help restore him in a way that doesn't perpetuate the very things that got him in this mess.
Right. Right. Do we have anything else to add, to tack on? Any final thoughts other than you get to see Bradley's office,
which is a mess, by the way. I should have cleaned off my desk.
Oh, you got Beale's Revelation commentary there.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Throwback to an episode a minute ago.
Yeah.
Good time.
So, anyway, this is a working man's desk.
Yes, this is how you know he's getting crap done, is he's got stuff all over it.
Everywhere.
So, anyway, thanks for listening or watching. Make sure you subscribe. You'll love God, love your neighbor. Make some music. We'll see you next time.